Hey guys, Ted Burns here for the Collegiate iRacing League. This week we are at Imola, and I am driving the Ford GT GTE. I have my setup here, which I will go ahead and post in the setup channel at the conclusion of this video. So I've been racing a little bit in the ILMS this week, but I came out here, did a test session, hot track, default weather, moderately high usage track, so about what we'll see during the race time. I did a little bit over a quarter hour, 10 laps here. Fastest lap I did was a 140.139. As you can see here, my optimal for this session was a 39.8, and then overall optimal around here is around a mid to low 38, and that's on qualifying fuel, maybe a little bit cooler track condition, lower usage. So without ado, I'll play through a lap and then walk through some of the corners and how they go. And so there we have it, that 140.139. So I should also note, had 0 incidents in all of this run, so you know all the track limits and everything like that is all valid. So starting off, coming up to turn 1. I guess first, just one little thing about the Ford. I come from a background of racing the Formula cars, so I like a real positive front end. I don't want the rear end to be, I would say, loose or oversteery. But I definitely like to have the car rotate. So that's about how I tried to make this setup. But I wanted to make sure it wasn't over-rotating too much, because I think the base VRS setup is what I originally started with. Coming up into like the turn 1 here is really easy to get the car to kind of roll over on itself and start to skid a bit. And I did a comparison of all the GTE cars. Ford and Ferrari I found were the 2 fastest. RSR was slightly behind them with the base VRS setups, but I found the Ford was a bit more consistent, and so I just tuned it to my liking. So without further ado, coming up turn 1, my brake marker, I'm looking for about the end of this wall here, this black light board up there on the side of the wall. That's where I'm braking. It's a very, very heavy brake zone coming down from 6th gear, trying to keep the car pretty straight. It's kind of hard because the track kind of dogs a bit to the left. You want to try and use as much of the track as possible, but it's okay if you're about a car width off it coming into here. You can take a bit of a shallower angle. So come all the way down to 3rd gear. Notice I'm carrying quite a bit of trail brake down into the corner. And I want to try and avoid the big sausage curbs here. So I want to try and put the left side tires just on the fringe of that on the red and white curbing. And so I managed to do that well there. And then I start using back into throttle right away. It's a little bit of maintenance throttle. I come out just a little bit as I hit the 2nd curb. And so right here I'm fighting with just a touch of a little bit of over rotation that the traction control eats up right away, so I try and open my hands very quickly. You can stay pretty tight here to the left. You have quite a bit of track. You'll use all the track on exit, but you can take a pretty shallow line through the end of Tombrello here. And again, keeping it all flat. I give myself just a little check. Probably didn't need to do that. Use all this curb here. It's okay. Just make sure you get back over before the grass. So I can go back through in the chase cam here one more time to kind of see the car placement through that first chicane. Just getting those left side tires right up close to those hot dog curbs, especially here on the right-hander. You want to try and apex the right-hander as late as possible. You want to try and get on throttle at that first left-hand portion of the chicane, so you can maximize your throttle and your speed out of it and down this straightaway here. So coming up to the next sequence of corners. My brake zone, I'm looking at the 100 and the 50 board. I'm usually trying to brake, I'd say, at about, I guess 75 would be in half, so about 75% of this, so maybe, 85-ish, 8 to 80 range coming in. So past the 100, that's about a little bit closer to 75. You can do that, especially on some of the newer tires earlier in the run. I'm coming down fourth gear through here, and I like to ease off the brake, try and steer to the left, get the car placed on this curb. You can actually run over these sausage curbs a little bit. I want to try and get a late apex and hug this this line around here as tight as possible. So you notice through here that I straighten up the hands as soon as I go to get back on the brake pedal. I'm going to need to give just a little bit, a little dab of brake again for the right-hand corner coming up here. And I steer into that, carrying a bit of trail brake down, and at pretty much avoiding this sausage curb at all costs. If you end up hitting this one, you can get very easily front bumper damage. I've done that in a couple cars in quite a few sessions this week. So trying to get as close as possible. You can ride up over the red and white curbs or stay on track. It's all about the same speed. But either way, as soon as you get here to the apex, getting on that maintenance throttle and easing into it, and you can use all of this pavement here on the exit on your drive out, and it doesn't hurt you too much, jostle the car too much. It's pretty easy on there, and just dip back off before you get to the grass. Nice and easy, full speed through there. Lay back through one more time from outside the car. Right, so coming up to this hairpin here, the brake marker I'm looking for is the 50 board. So I like to try and track over to the right-hand side of the track for this. And it's, again, another really heavy braking zone, but I'm going to kind of trail off and try and carry quite a bit of trail brake into the corner. But keeping in mind that this corner is uphill as you go around it, so you can get out of the brake and let off throttle, and if you have the car set up correct, it'll keep rotating and turning as you go uphill, yet you're still kind of decreasing speed and using the elevation change as your trail brake into this corner. See here, keeping that trail brake, just keeping it right down onto the curb. And as soon as I get there, I can get back on throttle. Now, because we're kind of rising up in elevation and flattening out, the rear end can really kind of step out on you here. So it's really important to straighten your hands as soon as you get onto throttle. And you have a lot of steering input late in this car, and you can use all of the exit curb here. So to avoid any sort of oversteer or just bogging down of the traction control, open the hands as quickly as possible to try and be able to accelerate out of here as quickly as possible. So one other note here, as you can see, just straighten those hands out, trying to get rid of the traction control. One other note for this corner, as you go on throughout the race, the front tires will kind of lose a bit of their grippiness, and you'll have to use a bit more trail brake and kind of a bit wider entry so you can still get that late apex and get to power as soon as possible. If you start creeping in and taking a real shallow line into there, you lose a lot of time on exit because now you're turning the car, basically doing a 9-degree turn over there once you get to the exit curb. See, and just fighting a little bit, trying to stay out of the TC there with the wheel. Right, next section. Come up the hill, straight line over, right side of the track, looking at the 50 board. This is one of the couple spots on the track where you have to be conscious, especially in a left-hand drive car, of not dipping your right side wheels off into the grass here. I've done it countless times in practice. I think the first like 20 laps I did at the track, I dipped the tires off here every single time. Same thing with the corners right after the Tambrillo chicane at the start of the lap. So brake marker for this is the 50 board. I'm going to try and carry quite a bit of trail brake again. I'm coming down 2 gears, down to 3rd gear. Downshift to 3rd can be pretty late. And turn in, and you can eat as much of this red and white curb as you want. I like to try and get about halfway onto it, or put the left side tires right on the top of that curb. And then as soon as you get to this curb, you can add in a lot of maintenance throttle, about 50–60%, then going to full as soon as you get onto exit. And you can use a lot of this track here on exit. I don't think you get in off track until you come over here onto the white concrete, but you can use all of the green, all of the red and white curb, and this goes on for quite a while if you do need to save it if you get the corner a little bit wrong. Try and drive out of that as fast as possible. So watch that one more time here. I think one of the trickiest sections of track coming up here next is this downhill valley here to the right. So I like to start braking left-hand side of the track. I don't know if I have a great brake reference. Oh yeah, right there, the 50 board. I kind of use just kind of the slope of the track where I'm at, judging to the corner as a brake marker. But 50 board there, if you do need to use it. I like to come down 1 gear here before the corner and kind of let off the brake pedal. Let the car rotate, kind of track out, and I'm going to straighten my hands up again and try and do most of my braking in this little stretch. You can't drive in here quite full speed, that's why you need that little bit of brake, and I like to go down the gear to help get some engine braking as I come through that first corner. Again, I have to be careful not to track out too far or carry too much speed in, otherwise it's really easy to dip the left side tires off here. But I want to try and follow the end of this curbing here as far as possible so I can maximize my radius into this corner and get as late an apex as possible, because it's a really tight cutback as you come up the hill, and it's really easy to get an off track and a slowdown if you don't hit the bottom of the hill correctly. So I'm coming all the way down to 2nd gear, carrying quite a bit of trail brake, and now kind of like the hairpin before, as I come uphill I can use some of the hill as my actual trail brake. I'm trying to hit as late of an apex as possible, avoiding the sausage curbs so they don't upset the car too much, and then get right back into throttle, about 60% until I can get it straight to just avoid being in the TC. And you want to make sure that you keep the right side tires onto the track here. Left side tires, you can straddle this curb a bit, but if these even think about touching the red and white curbing, you will get that off track. And if they leave the surface at all, you will get the slowdown, which is pretty painful. So actually we'll go back through that section one more time, real speed. So coming up for the, I guess, final chicane of the lap, my brake marker, it's after the 100 board. I'd say it's probably about, I would say the 90 to 85 in ideal conditions, really good tires. There we go, and this is a heavy brake, left-hand side of the track, coming down, but you actually end up easing off pretty early. Off the brake pedal and not trying to carry it into the corner. You want to roll as much speed as possible through the corner as possible. The only reason I'm not braking any later is because I want to try and get the ideal setup and have the car settled before I reach these curbs. So notice I carry just that little bit of trail brake, but my coming over the first curb, I want to get the right side tires completely over this kind of orange and black curbing, and basically send the driver center line of the car right over the transition between the red and white and the black curbs. I want to try and use more of this first curb than the second curb, because this one is much easier to ride over. You can get a much straighter approach at it, as opposed to the second curb. It's really easy to kind of throw you, and then you're chasing the car on exit, losing time down the straightaway. So I want to, do as much of my turning for this first curb as possible. Come right over that, and notice I have no inputs or anything. I don't want to have any brake as I come over there and hook the car to the right. I don't have any throttle, which means I've entered too slowly. Just nice, just nice, no inputs. And again, it's a pretty quick transition. So I want to try and have the hands straight by the time the car comes to land. I don't want to be still locked up trying to turn to the right. There's no need once I've come over this curb. If you've done this correctly, you basically straight line it. Now see, we just have a left-hand corner here as opposed to coming at a different trajectory over here, and you still have to turn right after you've hit the first curb. So it's really important to try and turn and hit this curb correctly so that you set up well for the second portion of this chicane. See, I transition the hands back quickly and start to get them pointed back to the left. I give just that little tap of trail brake in the transition there. Now this one you can use a lot of this orange and black, but I usually try not to and try and bring the left side tires just in between on this transition here. But you can use a little bit if you need, because you see how much of this one, it really kicks the car up quite a bit, and I'll start using that TC. And at this point I start to ease into throttle, and if you don't manage to hit too much of the black and orange, you can actually get to full throttle about right here at this point, because the car will, you've just nailed those two curbs perfectly, and the car's already settled, and you can get back to power without getting into the TC. But instead, it's still bouncing a little bit. Because of that, here on exit, I want to straighten my hands up, and notice I straighten them just as I come to full throttle. It's almost as if the steering input is just kind of pulling that throttle up there as I go in. And now I can do my turning here on exit. So you can use a lot of the exit here. You just want to try and avoid going too much onto the asphalt out here. You can use all of this green curbing. If you go out there, you end up getting a 1X, and you can get a slowdown for going too wide here on exit. So another thing to avoid. And you can kind of follow this, and I like to just take the right side tires and follow just this, the red and white curbing there on the exit. So I'll play through this one more time. So coming up to the last portion of the track, I like to stay to the right hand side, try and straight line this brake so as much as possible, braking at the 100 board. Basically, as soon as you get the car straight. I like to try and stay in third gear for this corner, but you got to be careful not to drive down too deep here. So it's very difficult because of the elevation changes. We're sloping down this way into the corner, and we're coming down a hill, traveling forward. So it really benefits from an early turn in into this corner, and you ride up over most of this curb here. And I like to try and put those left side tires over this kind of dirt cement mixture there, and right up on the edge of the grass. Get a little bit of maintenance throttle in there, about half throttle. I can track out, use all of this curbing here in between. Again, if you can do it in third gear, you'll end up gaining a little bit of time here in the middle, because you end up rolling a bit more speed. But if you need to use second because you're locking up or going wide, especially on the first lap, be careful not to go too wide here onto the dirt. That's okay. Coming into the last corner, I like to give just a little dab of brake, sometimes just coasting, and you just have to be really patient on throttle and just wait. Let the car rotate through here. You can use a bit of the green curb. I try not to use too much. I try and put the left side tires right at this little green, red, and white transition right with the grass. If you end up dipping the left side tires over this grass is where you end up getting the 1X, and you can get a slowdown for cutting this a bit too closely. So again, just trying to go there, and then it's full throttle. You can use all the exit. This curb can jostle the car a little bit, so I like to try not to use too much of it or ride up on it, but you can use all of that green exit there if you need to, and it's flat out from there to the end of the lap. Play back through that one more time, real speed. All right, and so there you have a lap around Imola. I guess there's some general notes. The GTE cars, they are heavy, as many of you probably already know. They're a little bit lazy to inputs, but you still have to be very precise to get that last, couple tenths, the last, half second. And it's very critical, braking that 10 meters deeper, getting on throttle, just that touch sooner, getting the car rotated, it's all adds up, and it may only be half a tenth here or there, but that adds up over the whole lap, and that's how you end up gaining those last couple seconds. If some of you are struggling, still setting up at like 43, 42 second lap times, no need to fear. It's actually you're probably driving it very well. It's just those last couple little things pushing the limits and just the couple spots that you can. But with that, feel free to ask me any questions. Let me know if you need any help with the setups in the setup channel, or with this one, or maybe some of the other cars. If you have something you need. And yeah, hopefully see you guys out there on track Tuesday night, and good luck.